Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today for a special conversational webinar. I'm Lauren Parr, co-founder of RepuGen, and I'm thrilled to be here with Debra Spindel, the former Vice President of MemorialCare. In today's webinar, we'll be talking with Debra about how MemorialCare built and sustained a remarkable 4.8-star online reputation and how they utilized RepuGen to help enhance patient experience, feedback, collection, provider engagement, and overall online visibility. We'll hear from Debra about how her leadership journey, the challenges that her team faced in turning patient feedback into actionable insights, and the lasting impact that those efforts made across MemorialCare. So while today's session will follow a Q&A format, the questions that we're going to be asking Debra have been pre-selected to guide our discussion. That said, if you do have any questions, we'd still love to hear from you. Feel free to submit your thoughts or questions in the chat or Q&A window during the webinar, and our team will follow up afterward with responses. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So since today's session, like I mentioned, is conversational, rather than walking through a formal agenda, I want to give you a quick sense of what we'll be covering. We'll start by learning about Debra's background at MemorialCare and her approach to patient experience. We'll talk through some of the challenges her team faced in collecting and acting on patient feedback and how they identified the right solution to move forward for MemorialCare. We'll also touch on what implementation looked like, how providers and staff were engaged throughout the process, and how MemorialCare measured the impact of these efforts, both internally and across their online reputation. And finally, we'll wrap up with some of Debra's key leadership insights and takeaways for other healthcare organizations. And just to quickly, before I introduce Debra, I want to quickly just introduce myself. My name is Lauren Parr. I'm co-founder of RepuGen. At RepuGen, we help healthcare providers and organizations manage patient feedback, improve online reviews, and build stronger relationships with their patients using data-driven tools. And I'm really excited to be here today with Debra to explore and learn more about her journey at MemorialCare with RepuGen. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Debra, former Vice President at MemorialCare. Debra has been living the retired life ever since then, but while at MemorialCare, she led numerous initiatives to improve patient experience, provider engagement, and online reputation. Debra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
Awesome. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with some questions. So first, Debra, I just want to find out, could you start just by telling us about your role at MemorialCare and what patient experience meant kind of under your leadership?
Sure. Until last year when I retired, I was Vice President of Physician Services for MemorialCare Medical Foundation, which is the ambulatory physician organization of MemorialCare. And so I oversaw physician group management function, billing, and also patient experience. So for us, the concept of patient experience encompasses everything related to ensuring that the patient received the highest level of care at the organization. So our department was responsible for providing customer service training, obtaining the patient feedback, designing the incentive programs, administering surveys, and managing the online reputation. So when I was there, I think we had about over 350 physicians using RepuGen.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. 350 providers is no small number. So it really gives a sense of the scale you were managing and how patient experience is defined to MemorialCare. That's wonderful. I want to build on that. So when you first took on the responsibility for patient experience, what were your initial priorities?
Well, I took on responsibility back in 2017. Seems like a long time ago now. At that time, the patient satisfaction scores were only average, and there was minimal ability to obtain what I like to call actionable patient feedback. So my main priority was figure out how to do that, how to both improve the patient experience and implement processes to achieve that goal.
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Kind of starting with those fundamentals and trying to understand what patients were feeling and how to improve that patient experience, right?
Exactly.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges you faced along the way. So those early barriers that made improving patient experience difficult. What were some of those main barriers that you faced in collecting and acting on patient feedback before implementing RepuGen?
Well, back then we all only had what was the standardized CAP survey, which is a regulatory requirement for a lot of both Medicare and a lot of the health plans, standardized survey. And that was all we had to give visibility to what patients were thinking about the organization. The problem with that type of survey is that it's anonymous, so there's no ability to interact or perform service recovery if needed. And there's a significant lag between the time the patient had a visit and they get the survey. So recollection is a problem. And there's really no ability to resolve any patient concerns there might be. Another big hurdle was that the response rate for those types of surveys was only about 12%. So
Wow.
not a good sampling of our patient population.
Yeah, totally understandable. I've noticed that a lot of the regulatory surveys are anonymous and often are sent after a while after the patient's visit, which creates that lag that you talked about and makes it hard for any timely action to happen. So, how did those feedback challenges impact Memorial Care's online reputation? For instance, your review volume, star ratings, or how patients were finding your physicians online?
Well, at that time, there was basically no management of the physicians or the medical group's online reputation. Most of the online ratings, with very low volume for our physicians and not very timely. So a lot of them were really old. So I think before RepuGen, our average star rating was about 3.9 stars. So we
Yeah.
really wanted to improve that.
Yeah, and that's something that we see so often. A great organization with excellent providers, not having some sort of system in place to help collect that patient feedback and get online reviews, you're really not able to match up your online presence with how great the organization is. So an average rating of 3.9 with outdated reviews can make a huge difference in how patients perceive you.
Mhm.
So, with all of those challenges in mind, I want to move into when you and your team started looking for a better way to manage patient feedback and reputation. So, when you started to do that, what outcomes did you hope to achieve when you decided to implement RepuGen to kind of help with this across Memorial Care's provider network?
Yeah, well, in addition to obviously wanting to increase our online, ratings and star scores, we also wanted to be able to obtain immediate actionable feedback from the patients. With again, the ultimate goal, once we had that, would be to improve both our online reputation scores and our, standardized CAP scores. And I'm not sure if everyone knows, but the CAP scores also are used by these health plans to financially incentivize larger provider organizations like us. So there was a financial incentive as well. So again, we worked with RepuGen as kind of a development partner back in those days to come up with how the platform could be flexible and provide us the capabilities that we needed to achieve our goals.
Yeah, makes total sense. It's a very insightful approach that, we're still using to this day with our clients with the feedback loop that we were able to create with you guys back in 2017. So it's wonderful to hear kind of where it started from. I also want to talk about what the process kind of looked like for implementing a new system of this scale and kind of getting everyone on board. So, how did you gain buy-in from physicians and staff during the rollout?
Well, back then, the idea of online reputation management was kind of a foreign idea to most physicians. To be honest, they really didn't like the idea of having to ask patients for reviews, and they didn't see the need.
Mm.
So we piloted RepuGen with a smaller group of kind of forward-thinking physicians who were open to the idea. And then once we had the really positive results from that group, we were able to much easier roll it out to the larger organization. And at that time, also making sure they all understood the industry statistics about how important online reputation was for patients to choose a doctor.
Mhm.
So once all that kind of came together, it was much easier, but it was definitely a process and there were definitely obstacles in the beginning.
Right, and I love that approach. I think it's something that we still even do today when we're working with new clients, kind of starting small with a little pilot group to let the early results kind of speak for themselves. Changes, it's easier to embrace when there's people that are able to show that impact firsthand and have some tangible results to be able to say, okay, I see that this works and now I'll try it out for myself too. So I really
Absolutely.
like that. I also want to talk about what those early outcomes kind of looked like once RepuGen was fully set up and running for MemorialCare. So once the RepuGen system was fully operational, did you start to see an impact right away, or what kind of impact did you start to see?
Well, the first thing we saw was immediately we saw much higher response rates because again, with RepuGen, the surveys are sent out immediately, like within, you can set it up how you want, both in 24 hours of the patient's visit. So we immediately jumped up from like 12% to like a 30% response rate. And most of those included comments, very helpful comments. And then, eventually we'd see the online star ratings improve as well as the process went on.
Yeah, and that's definitely a big improvement going from a 12% response to 30%. That's a huge leap. And the fact that patients were also leaving comments must have given your team some valuable insight into what was working and what needed attention, right? Yeah, so it's great to hear how you also started seeing online reviews increase quickly as well. It really shows how the feedback, that loop, retaining patients and getting online reviews, it's all kind of built in together in that one loop. I wanted to also ask you if you could share like a specific example of how the feedback that was received was actionable for your team.
Yes, as mentioned, RepuGen is very flexible and can be customized for individual clients. So we set it up such that as soon as a negative review was received,
Mhm.
we had it set up so that an email went to the practice manager of that particular site where the review came from. And then we had a protocol. They would reach out to the patient, they have a time frame within 24 hours to get more information about what happened, perform service recovery. Again, the intent was both to give the information to achieve, operational improvements
Mhm.
and also hopefully satisfy the patient before they might go and post something negative online. So again, our managers reported that most of the patients were extremely grateful that someone actually did reach out and listen to their concerns. So it was a win-win all around.
Yeah, I think that's what so many patients are looking for too. It's like if you have a dissatisfactory experience, you just want somebody to hear out those frustrations and learn what's going to happen for it to be dealt with. I think it's a really well thought out process, and you say it's very customizable, and RepuGen is. This exact process is the same thing that many of our clients use to this day. So responding quickly, resolving those issues, and using the feedback to guide improvement is integral to the platform still as it is today. So that's
Great.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I know that the results really tell the story. So I kind of pulled a few different stats from MemorialCare too, just to show and highlight during our webinar today. So after implementing RepuGen, you can see MemorialCare saw a major jump in both volume of number of reviews and also sentiment, where the star rating was increasing over time. You could
Yep.
really see here that the number of online reviews tripled in just the first year, and the average star rating climbed from 3.9 to 4.6, while the percentage of those 5-star reviews is rising dramatically, and the 1-star reviews are dropping. And that's all coming from that exact process that you're talking about, Deborah, where you're surveying the patients, finding out if they were satisfied. If they weren't, they have the ability to vent those frustrations internally and still go on to leave a review if they wish to do so. But if they had a positive experience, they can leave positive feedback internally and then also go on to leave an online review. So I just wanted to kind of share a glimpse into some of these results that you guys were able to achieve with us as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so the improvement after implementing RepuGen, as I just showed, I think it was remarkable. And the average ratings climbed from that 3.9 to 4.6. What do you think drove that transformation? Is there anything that maybe I'm not touching on, or is it kind of the same?
Yeah, I think it's like we've been talking about. We really felt that the kind of the two-pronged approach mentioned above was the key. Driving more patients to rate online and getting those ratings up was one, but then along with the mechanism for the immediate feedback and performing service recovery. Those two things together really, I think, pushed us to achieve the goals that we were able to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah, makes total sense. When you're addressing those patient concerns right away, patients begin to trust that that their voices are mattering, and then the quick, genuine follow-up turns into what could have been, a complaint into a moment of connection, and for those patients that had a positive experience going on to leave an online review. So,
Yeah, I think we all know it's all about patient engagement. So this was
yeah,
a way to engage with patients that you wouldn't normally have.
right, right, makes total sense. And so I imagine when those results started to become visible, it may have started to influence provider motivation and engagement. I want to talk about that next. So, did you observe any shift in provider behavior or motivation once they could start seeing these feedback trends and patient sentiment directly?
Oh yeah, they were much happier with the ability to get that actionable feedback, the immediate feedback. They had been very frustrated with the old survey where it was just this anonymous thing that said, you know, they rate the physician on a scale of 1 to 10, and they were a 7. Okay, well, why? So in this case, they had actionable, they had comments, they could see what the patient was feeling, and that gave them a sense of control, what they could do. They became very engaged in the process and a bit competitive because, we would publish the scores and online ratings, and then, what we could use the actual feedback to pinpoint areas of concern. It became easier to provide constructive interventions. Training is needed. So, because we did the training as well, so we could really focus the training.
Mm,
And the physicians started seeing the correlation between high online ratings and patient acquisition. So
wow.
we also did surveys of our new patients to find out, why did they choose your doctor? And I think over 50% were saying Google or other online ratings was a significant factor in choosing their physician. So again, the physician started to see the importance of this.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's such a great example of how empowering the providers with this real-time feedback can completely change their engagement, right? So once they could actually see how the patients were feeling, where they stand, it kind of builds up that sense of ownership. And I love that you said even a little friendly competition, which is fun to see. And hearing that over 50% of those new patients were basing some of their selection on that next physician on their online reviews, it really
Mhm.
highlights how all of this kind of goes together and how important online reputation is. And then I wanted to also find out, so how did your team use any positive feedback? Did you guys recognize or reward staff or physicians internally when there was positive things being said?
Yeah, well, we made sure to distribute the results. And again, most of the results are positive. So we tend to focus on the negative, how can we improve? But as you saw with our scores, overwhelmingly, we had positive feedback.
Yeah.
So sharing that with the physicians and staff was very important and motivating. Um, we also used the scores to recognize individuals. We had some little competitions. There were some incentives tied to it. So again, yes, there's a lot of data there to incentivize people.
I
I don't
love
know
that.
if you have this, yeah, there's the
Yeah.
slide. So yeah, we would publish these types of online dashboards, drill downs, again, all within the RepuGen platform to be able to drill down and see what's what. And we gave the doctors access to this, or we would publish it so that everyone can see how they were doing. Again, highly motivated because most of the practices were doing really well by this time.
Yeah, makes total sense to highlight all of the positive results that you're getting and using the feedback as a motivator and a culture builder. I think it's a great idea. I want to kind of use that as a perfect lead in to wrap up our conversation. I think we've covered many valuable insights today, from the early challenges to the implementation of RepuGen with Memorial Care and the results that followed. I do have just a couple more questions. Looking back, was there any key lessons or best practices that you would share with other healthcare leaders aiming to elevate their patient experience and online reputation programs?
I think just to summarize what we talked about, I think the key learning was the crucial importance of obtaining that immediate feedback that is also actionable. Those two were the key to utilizing the patient feedback in the best manner. I think it made all the difference in the success of our program. Also back then, as I said, changing the physician's perception of online reviews was challenging.
Yeah.
But in today's environment, I think the importance is pretty well understood. And people implementing it today wouldn't have that same thing. But now I think the challenge is how to best to manage reputation, given all the changes with AI and all the new technologies out there. So it keeps, you know, it keeps morphing into different things that you have to take into consideration.
Absolutely. It's a very insightful perspective. It definitely shows how the landscape just continues to evolve. And you're absolutely right with AI now shaping how patients are finding and evaluating providers. Reputation management has entered a new era. It's becoming more about staying visible, not just on the regular search engine optimization platforms, but also the AI powered platforms as well, and ensuring that they are staying visible and trusted in the digital world is definitely something that's continuing to be important. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to find out, is there anything else maybe we didn't cover today that you'd like to share, final thought or reflection from your experience with RepuGen?
I think I mentioned a little bit, but I think I really appreciated how RepuGen and the company worked with us to develop the platform to our needs, and it was really a partnership. So your team has always been very responsive, receptive to our ideas, and as you know, we had a lot of ideas over the years, Lauren.
Wonderful
Um,
ideas.
so that was a great partnership. So I think having a vendor like that has been key also to our success and you know, you're going to have to adapt more in the future. I'm
Yeah.
not doing it anymore, but
Yeah, and it means a lot to hear that, Deborah. So thank you for saying that. It's been such a privilege to revisit this journey with you and hear kind of firsthand how your team and Memorial Care transformed its patient experience with the help of RepuGen. So thank you so much for taking the time to
sure,
speak with
thank
me
you.
today. Awesome. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. We really hope you gained some valuable insights into how patient experience can be transformed with tools like RepuGen. If you're interested in learning more about us, you can visit our website at www.repugen.com. We'll also send a recording of today's session to all attendees, and we'll also share the resources that we discussed so you can review them and share with your team. And we're looking forward to seeing you all again and seeing what you do next. And thanks again, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.